A couple of other things. It's the U.S. News and World Report is reporting that 16,000 children, women and children, have been killed in Gaza. Does that you have anything to say about that? Does that really doesn't hold you back and doesn't stagger your perceptions of what's going on in this war?
Of course, Saeed. Of course. Don't take my word for it. Take the secretary's word for it, who has quite clearly spoken about the sheer impact on Palestinian civilians that this conflict has had, not to mention the impact that it has had on the most vulnerable in those circumstances, including women and children. I will say again that we believe Israel has a moral and strategic imperative to take all possible precautions to avoid civilian harm as it conducts this operation. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, Israel has been using dumb bombs, 2,000 pounds that were supplied by the United States of America. That is not exactly, being surgical and so on. As long as they use this kind of munitions, civilians will die. Day in and day out. Are you reconciled to the fact that 150 or more Palestinian civilians, men, women, and children die every day now?
On the specifics of the military operations, Zaid, I'm just not going to speak to those, as this is not an American operation. But in every engagement that we have had with our Israeli counterparts, and in every engagement we will continue to have, we have reiterated the moral and strategic imperative that steps need to be taken, more needs to be done to minimize the impact on civilians. But simultaneously, Saeed, it is also important to remember that while we have this conversation, no one is calling for Hamas to lay down its arms. No one has been condemning Hamas for the irresponsible tactic that no one aside from us has been for the irresponsible tactics that Hamas has been taking to co-locate itself within civilian infrastructure. Right. Its targeting of Israeli civilians on October 7th and beyond. Its continued attacks on Israel's sovereignty, and its stated intent of recreating October 7th over again and again and again and again. And of course, I'm not saying that there is any moral equivalency between Hamas and Israel, but we'll continue to reiterate again that steps need to be taken for civilian casualties to be minimized.
Although it's the Israeli forces that are really now occupying Hamas and occupying Gaza and inside the territory, correct?
That is.
So they could call this off too. They could probably pursue a much more a course that it might be much more successful, like negotiating with Hamas to release the hostage. Wouldn't that be a good idea?
I'm not going to speak to the specifics surrounding the military operation. Of course, we want to see hostages released as swiftly as possible, but we also believe that it is important that steps be taken to not just hold Hamas accountable, but degrade it in such a way that October 7th cannot be repeated.
My last question. Sure. Palestinians are reporting that the Israeli army executed 19 civilians, summary execution. I wonder if you're aware of the report and if you have any comment on that.
I've seen that article site, and we've not been able to independently confirm these reports.
But if you can confirm that this has happened, this would be a war crime, wouldn't it?
Saeed, I'm just not going to get ahead of hypotheticals. Okay. We've been clear that Israel must comply with international humanitarian law, but the article that you pointed out, we have not been able to independently confirm.
I understand, but if it did happen, that would constitute a war crime.
I'm just not going to offer a prescriptive opinion from up here.